Lily, I have a question that's come through for you around food and the future of food. What are your thoughts on Singapore's self-sufficiency and food tech plans, and maybe what are lessons for other cities?
So this is an existential question for us. I remember in the 1960s and 1970s, when Singapore was first developing, that a very conscious decision was made to say, we're doing away with the pig farms. If we don't have enough land, we're going to privilege the land for industry, by which we mean manufacturing and so forth. And we can source our foods from the region. Now, what the pandemic has shown us is that actually it can be a real challenge. So if your supply of chickens and your supply of eggs and indeed your supply of water is going to be turned off, then how are we going to survive? And it's as fundamental as all of that. So as far as water is concerned, Singapore over the decades has really worked at it from a technological perspective, and desalination is a real thing. And, bringing the cost of that down to such a level that it is possible, viable economically and not just technologically. But then again, there is the hurdle of the psychological. Will people drink water that was once considered or was once, not pristine? And are you confident of the technology that you're going to ingest that water? So the solution to water has been multi-pronged, right? It's technological, it's economic, and it's psychological. And the same with food. So if we're not going to be able to gain our access to food, and by the way, Singapore has set a target of 30% of our own nutritional needs by 2030, and we're not one-third, we're at best one-third of the way there at this point in time. Now, how are we going to address that? Alternative foods are going to be a necessary thing to think about. And so you have, the ability to bring in things like alternative meats. There are startups here, including in my own university, where we have a startup that has looked at the production of cell-based milk. And then ensuring, again, that it is one, technologically possible, economically possible, and psychologically acceptable to the population. So there is no way in which Singapore is going to be able to be 100% self-sufficient. We're working hard at becoming 30% self-sufficient. And all those hurdles are ones to be crossed and to be worked at. And I think the journey has begun in quite a positive way. And there are lots of young, innovative minds, entrepreneurs, who are trying to contribute to that. The example which I just cited of cell-based milk, but also the production of insect feed that is more productive and therefore is able to produce a higher amount of our nutritional needs on smaller amounts of land, etc. So I think there's a great need for the sort of innovative and entrepreneurial work that goes on in many startups that are incubated by universities and so forth. And that work must continue if we are to even realize the 30%.
It's an expensive vision as well, isn't it? Because, vertical farms are much more expensive than traditional horizontal farms. And so there's I guess there's a cost that Singapore's paying, or its insurance policy, I suppose, willing to pay higher amounts for its food in order to have more onshore.
Even if we didn't invest in this and we didn't put in the invest in the technology, the higher costs, etc., the supply chain disruptions are going to mean that our foods are more costly. So it's a question of where you place your bets, and the answer is not all in one basket. You're going to have to be able to deal with supply chain challenges. You're going to be able to come up with collaborative supply chain, logistics, urban delivery optimization so as to reduce costs, etc. And at the same time, invest in the technology so that you have alternative sources. It is, as I said, an existential question for Singapore.